It was black. That was the first thing I noticed. The eyelash. Long, curled, coated faintly with mascara. Too dark, too perfect, not the kind that falls from Isla's soft, fair lashes. And definitely not mine. But that didn't matter at the time. I blew it off the pillow and laughed to myself. Maybe it clung to her sweater at work. Maybe it floated in through an open window. Maybe I was overthinking, like always. That was the first time. By the fifth time, I had a small folder on my phone labeled, unknown. 5 photos. 5 different eyelashes. None of them mine. None of them hers. Some bent, some full, one still stuck to a piece of tissue I found in the trash. All of them tiny markers, like breadcrumbs laid down by someone who didn't care enough to clean up. I never brought them up. Not once. I couldn't bear the thought of hearing her say, "You're losing it, Nolan." Because maybe I was. Maybe I am. But then there was the button. A small, silver shirt button. Not from anything I owned. Not from anything she owned either, as far as I could tell. It was wedged between the cushions on our reading chair, the one in the sunroom that no one ever uses, except maybe Clyde when he wants to nap in the sunlight. I held it in my palm for a long time. It had a smooth center and a slightly frayed thread still clinging to its holes. I put it in a mint tin and didn't say a word. After that, I started sleeping lighter. I began waking up at 3:17 a.m. every night. Like clockwork. I'd lie there, eyes open in the dark, listening. Listening for creaks. For shoes slipping off quietly. For drawers opening. One night, I heard her whisper. It wasn't a name. Just a sound. A muffled syllable that could have been anything. Uh-huh, or MMM, or even yes. I sat up. She was facing away, breathing deep like she was asleep. But her hand was clenched under the covers. Not relaxed. Not dreaming. The next day, she said she had to go to the antique market 2 towns over. I offered to come along. She told me, flat out, "No, I need to do this one alone." Alone. The word echoed. Not, "I'm meeting a client." Not, "It's a work thing." Not, "You wouldn't enjoy it." Just alone. I followed her. I know how that sounds. I'm not proud of it. But I had to. I needed to know if I was spiraling or sinking into something real. She didn't go to the antique market. She didn't even head in that direction. She drove to a beige 2-story house in a part of town I'd never seen her go before. Parked. Sat in the car for 6 minutes. Then a man came out. Tall. Athletic. Navy blue Henley. Wore his confidence like a coat. He didn't wave. Didn't smile. Just opened her car door and slid in beside her like he'd done it 100 times before. They sat there for a while. I couldn't see what they were doing. Maybe they were just talking. But then his hand went up, slow, deliberate, and he touched her face. That's when I knew. I didn't take a picture. I didn't record it. I just sat in my own car, 2 blocks away, gripping the steering wheel so hard it left crescents in my palms. When she came home 3 hours later with a chipped ceramic vase and said, "You would have hated that place," I smiled and nodded. That was 4 days ago. And now she's planning a weekend away for work. And I'm planning something else. Something quiet. Something final. Because the 6th eyelash showed up this morning on my side of the bed. And this time, I didn't take a photo. I left it there. Waiting. She packed light. Just a tote bag and that old duffel with the busted zipper she swore she'd throw out last spring. 2 outfits, some toiletries, and oddly, a silk nightgown I hadn't seen in years. One of the ones I bought her on our 5th anniversary. The one she wore once and said it felt too obvious. She was humming while packing. That hurt more than I want to admit. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom and watched her roll up her blouse with care, tucking it in beside a neatly folded set of jeans. I asked where exactly the retreat was again, just to see if she'd repeat the same story. She didn't even hesitate. St. Elma's Lodge. Same place we stayed that New Year's when the pipes froze. Remember? I nodded. Of course I remembered. We'd huddled together in one blanket with a bottle of wine, giggling like kids while the heat was out. Back when her laugh reached her eyes. Back when I mattered. Now she smiled past me, barely grazing my shoulder as she walked out of the room. That evening, after she left, I sat on the stairs for a full hour. Clyde lay beside me, tail wagging out of obligation more than excitement. I didn't even bother locking the door behind her. Let the wind take it off the hinges. It would have been more honest than what she left me with. At 8:14 p.m., I started driving. Not towards St. Elma's Lodge. Toward the beige house. I didn't even need GPS this time, my hands just knew the turns. The house was dark when I got there. Porch light off. No cars in the driveway. I parked 2 blocks down again, same as last time, and waited. After about 15 minutes, a car pulled up. Not hers, not yet. A silver Audi. Out stepped Navy Henley himself, same swagger, same build. He walked to the door, unlocked it, and went inside. 30 minutes later, her car arrived. She got out wearing a different top than she had left in, a tighter one, slightly sheer under the street lamp. Her posture was looser, casual, like she was arriving somewhere safe, somewhere familiar. She rang the doorbell even though she must have known he was already inside. The door opened. She smiled. They hugged, not long, but long enough, and she walked in. The door shut behind her. I sat there. Engine off. Lights off. Just breathing. I don't know how long I stayed. Long enough for my legs to go numb. Long enough for a neighbor walking their dog to glance at me twice. Eventually, I drove home. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just walked into the kitchen, poured myself a glass of tap water, and sat at the counter in the dark. The silence was unbearable. I could hear the refrigerator hum, the faint tick of the clock over the sink, Clyde scratching his ear in the next room. I opened the Notes app on my phone. Started typing a list. Lies I've heard since February. Late consult with a wallpaper vendor. Client dinner ran long. Pinterest rabbit hole kept her up. Yoga class at sunrise. The eyelash was probably hers. The button came off her coat. Her phone kept dying. I was being distant lately. I stared at number 8 for a while. That one burned more than the rest. Distant? Me? I was the one begging her to talk, to sit down with me, to be real again. I was the one noticing every little shift in tone, every deflection, every new lock screen password. I was the one who made popcorn and queued up movies she liked and let her win arguments just to keep the peace. And now I was the distant one? I spent the night on the couch. I didn't even try to sleep. Just laid there listening to the occasional car pass outside, wondering if she'd come home smelling different again, wondering if I'd still pretend not to notice. But she didn't come home at all. Not that night. Not the next morning. Just a text, staying one more night. Don't wait up. Signal's bad. Signal's bad. I nearly laughed out loud. What signal? She was in the same city. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop and started searching. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. Maybe hotel booking sites. Maybe property records. Maybe his face on social media. I didn't know his name. I didn't know anything, and somehow, that made everything feel worse. Like I wasn't even worthy of knowing who was dismantling my marriage from the inside. That's when I found something. A calendar. Synced to her design firm's site. Open to the public by accident, probably. Next to Sunday's date. Client visit, Derek S. Derek. I had a name now. I copied it into the search bar and hit enter. And what I saw on the second result made my stomach turn cold. Because Derek S. wasn't just a client. He was married. And his wife? She posted a photo 2 weeks ago, a candid shot of Derek and Isla in the background, standing far too close for strangers. Captioned, design consult went well. Weird energy, though. Weird energy indeed. Now it's Sunday night. Isla is home again. Upstairs in the shower. Probably humming. And I'm sitting in the hallway, holding that broken spoon in one hand, and Derek's wife's Instagram in the other. Because I think it's time someone else finds an eyelash on their pillow. I didn't sleep that night either. After I found that photo of Isla and Derek on his wife's Instagram, I just sat there staring at it like it might change if I looked long enough. I zoomed in. Her eyes were focused on him. His arm was angled slightly toward her, not touching her, but almost. It was the kind of body language you wouldn't notice if you trusted someone. The kind you couldn't miss if you didn't. I checked the timestamp, 2 weeks ago. Same weekend Isla said she was out of town for a color therapy seminar. I remember because she came back wearing a new scarf, orange and deep blue, said it was a gift from a presenter. It was a lie, obviously, but it was a beautifully casual lie. The kind that lands soft, doesn't rattle when it hits the floor. I scrolled deeper into the woman's profile. Her name was Brooke. She looked kind. Her smile was real. She posted about yoga, books she read, a sourdough starter she named Martin. Normal things. Safe things. The opposite of what I was living in. My hand trembled as I messaged her. Hi. This might sound strange, but I think we should talk. I'm Nolan. My wife is Isla, and I believe we're both being lied to by the same person. I stared at it, rewrote it 3 times, hit send, and immediately regretted it. My chest felt like it was being slowly crushed under the weight of 1,000 tiny yes that should have been no's. She didn't respond. Not right away. Meanwhile, Isla came down the stairs, towel drying her hair like nothing had happened. She walked past me in the hallway and kissed my cheek, lightly, automatically, and said, "Want pancakes tomorrow?" Pancakes. That's what I got in exchange for everything. All the silence. All the pretending. A short stack of lies. That morning, I took Clyde out earlier than usual and made a detour to Isla's car. I'd never done it before. Never once checked her things. Never needed to. But this time, I knew I was looking for something. I just didn't know what. The glove box was empty except for expired insurance papers. I checked under the seat. Nothing. Then, in the side panel of the driver's door, beneath a tangle of receipts and empty gum wrappers, I found it. A second phone. It was thin, older, no case, and turned off. I didn't turn it on right away. My heart was thudding so hard I felt dizzy. I put it in my coat pocket and walked Clyde in circles around the block for another half hour, trying to steady my breathing. When I got home, Isla was still asleep. I locked myself in the bathroom, sat on the edge of the tub, and held the phone like it might bite me. It took 3 tries, but the passcode was her old one. The one she used years ago, before she switched to facial recognition. 0737, our wedding date. July 3rd, 2007. Sentimental, if not completely psychotic. The phone buzzed to life. I opened the Messages app. It wasn't Derek's name I saw. It was M. Not D, not honey, not client. Just M. And the messages weren't recent. They stretched back nearly 7 months. Last night was a blur. Your mouth should be illegal. He keeps sniffing around. I think he suspects. But he'd never leave, he's too scared to be alone. Do you think about me when you're with him? And her reply. Sometimes. But mostly I think about how much I want to disappear into you. I wish I could say I stopped reading. But I didn't. I scrolled and scrolled and scrolled, until my eyes burned and my hands went numb. There were dozens of texts, photos, voice notes. One of them, and I'll never forget this, was a 17-second clip of Isla, lying on a hotel bed in lingerie I had never seen before, biting her lip and whispering, "You'll get this again if you're good." I dropped the phone. Actually dropped it. It clattered on the tiles. Clyde barked from the hallway like he knew something wasn't right. I wiped my face with a towel and tried to breathe through it. In. Out. Don't vomit. Don't scream. Don't break. I put the phone back exactly where I found it. Then I went upstairs and made pancakes. She smiled when she came down. Told me I was sweet. Sat across from me in her robe and poured syrup with the same hand she used to text, "He's too scared to be alone." I stared at the bottle in her hand, watching the syrup drip slow and thick, and thought, no, Isla, not scared. Just done. At noon, Brooke replied. Her message was short. I was wondering when someone else would say it. Let's talk. And just like that. I wasn't the only one holding the pieces anymore. Brooke and I met in the parking lot of a library on the edge of town. It was neutral ground, quiet, with security cameras but no foot traffic. She showed up in a silver Honda with a dent on the side and a look in her eyes I recognized immediately, the look of someone who's been living inside a question they're too scared to finish asking. She rolled down her window first. "You're Nolan," she said. Her voice cracked slightly. "Yeah," I nodded. "Thanks for showing up." Neither of us got out of our cars right away. We just sat there for a moment, parked side by side like two people trying to figure out which one of us was the bigger idiot. Finally, she stepped out and motioned for me to come over. I followed, clutching my phone like it was a shield. She didn't cry. I thought she might. I nearly did the second I saw the tight line of her mouth and the way she rubbed her thumb over her palm, like she was trying to wipe something away that wouldn't come off. I saw the messages, I told her. In the video. She blinked hard. Video? I hesitated. Not your husband. Someone else. There's more than just Derek. That was the moment her face broke. Not tears, just complete stillness. Her shoulders dropped, and she leaned against the side of her car like gravity had suddenly doubled. How long? She asked. I shook my head. Months. At least 7 that I know of. She closed her eyes. God. I'm sorry, I whispered, like it even meant anything. She didn't answer right away. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I was going to mail this to her, she said. But I never did. It was a handwritten letter. No greeting. No name. Just a single sentence. I know who you are when you're not pretending. That was all it said. I didn't ask for context. I didn't need to. I understood it in a way only someone like me could. The version of Isla I lived with wasn't real anymore, maybe never was. And Brooke had been staring at the same illusion, slowly watching it rot from the inside. We didn't talk much after that. She gave me her number, told me to keep her updated, said she had a kid at home and didn't want this mess dragging her daughter into it. I promised to keep her out of everything. We shook hands like two coworkers finishing a shift no one wanted. On the drive home, I saw Isla's car in the driveway and my chest immediately seized. I had imagined dozens of ways to confront her. Dramatic ones, quiet ones, even just slipping a printout of the text under her pillow. But as I stepped inside and saw her dancing barefoot in the kitchen, spatula in hand, singing along to some old Bon Iver song, I did nothing. She turned, beaming. Guess who made lemon bars? I smiled. I actually smiled. I felt sick doing it, but I smiled anyway. We ate dinner on the patio. She asked about my day. I made up a story about Clyde slipping on the hardwood floor and chasing a squirrel in his dreams. She laughed. I laughed. We were two actors in a play I didn't audition for. That night, we had intimacy. I'm not sure why I let it happen. Maybe I needed to know if I could still feel anything. Maybe I wanted to see if she'd kiss me like she kissed them. But as her body pressed against mine, I felt nothing. Not even betrayal. Just distance. Like I was watching it from outside my own skin. Afterward, she fell asleep almost instantly. I laid there for hours, wide awake, staring at the ceiling. Every inhale she took sounded like a countdown. The next morning, she got up early for work. Left a note on the fridge. You make my world safe. It was handwritten. Cursive. Sweet. I tore it in half and shoved it in my pocket. I spent the rest of the day walking through the house like it belonged to someone else. I opened drawers. I checked closets. I searched the basement, the attic, the garage. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for, maybe something that would make all of this make sense. Something I'd missed. In the laundry room, I found a shoebox taped shut and shoved behind the water heater. Inside were old hotel key cards. 13 of them. None of them from St. Elma's Lodge. Each one had a sticky note stuck to it, dates, initials, sometimes 2 sets. I recognized Derek's. And someone named T. and M. and C. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the box. I placed it back exactly where I found it, careful not to disturb the dust. I went back upstairs, locked the bathroom door, and stared at myself in the mirror. Really looked. Eyes puffy, jaw clenched, skin pale. I whispered, "You make my world safe," and laughed until it cracked. Tomorrow is Friday. She thinks we're going to her sister's cabin for the weekend. But I know she's booked a room at the Solace and the same place 3 of those key cards came from. I made a reservation of my own. Same hotel, same floor, different plan. The room they gave me smelled faintly of bleach and artificial lavender. I dropped my bag by the dresser and didn't bother unpacking. There wasn't anything to unpack, really, just a change of clothes, my phone charger, and the key items I'd brought for comfort, Clyde's old tennis ball and a mini notepad I'd started scribbling names in. The bedspread was beige. The curtains were a darker beige. The lamp buzzed faintly. Everything felt numb, muted, just like me. Room for 17. Her reservation was for 419. Same floor, just across the hall. I know that because I'd called the front desk days ago and said I was surprising my wife and wanted to be nearby. The woman on the phone had been so friendly. Said that was so sweet. I almost laughed. At 2:32 p.m., I saw her arrive from my peephole. She stepped off the elevator in a green wrap dress I hadn't seen before. Hair curled, makeup subtle, heels that clicked confidently on the carpeted floor. She was alone, holding just her purse and that damn duffel bag with the broken zipper again. I watched her knock on the door to 419. It opened. It wasn't Derek. It was someone else entirely. Tall, gray temples, dark button-up, arms that suggested gym time and a paycheck that probably came with benefits and an executive parking spot. I'd never seen him before, and that hurt more than if it had been someone I already hated. At least with Derek, I had a face to despise. This man? He was a blank check. A new character introduced just when I thought the cast was complete. They hugged. He kissed her on the temple. She whispered something, and he laughed, not too loud, not too intimate. Just easy. Familiar. They stepped inside and shut the door. And I stood there. Still. Burning. The rage didn't come the way I imagined. It didn't roar. It crept. Like cold water rising slowly around your ankles before you realize it's too late to move. I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the wall. 10 minutes passed. then 15, then 40. I checked my phone. Nothing. No messages from her. No updates. No excuses. She was in that room, with a stranger, doing God knows what, and I was still too scared to knock. Still too afraid of what it would sound like, me standing there in the hallway, asking her why she wasn't at her sister's cabin. At exactly 3:41 p.m., I stepped outside and walked down the hallway like I was going to get ice. It gave me an excuse to walk past the door. I didn't hear much. Just faint music. Something jazzy. Old school. The kind of thing Isla used to hate, until she didn't. Back in my room, I wrote a message to Brooke but didn't send it. There's a new one. Not Derek. Older. Room 419. I don't even know who she is anymore. I stared at the message. I stared at my reflection in the black screen of the TV. I stared at the tennis ball on the dresser. And then I stood up. I walked across the hallway, raised my hand, and knocked. One soft knock. Then two. I heard footsteps inside. Light ones. Hesitant. The door opened 3 inches. She was the one who answered. Her face froze. Like she'd seen a ghost. Like her body had walked through that door, but her soul hadn't caught up yet. Nolan, she said. She didn't say, "What are you doing here?" Or, "How did you find me?" Or even, "This isn't what it looks like." She said my name like it was an apology. Like it hurt her mouth to form the letters. Behind her, the man appeared. He looked at me and stiffened. Didn't step forward. Didn't retreat. Just stood there with his hand on the back of her waist like he belonged there. "Isla," I said quietly. "We're not doing this in a hallway." She nodded, wide-eyed. She stepped out, closed the door behind her. We stood there, 3 feet apart, like strangers in an airport. She opened her mouth, but I cut her off. "You told me you were going to your sister's." No, don't talk yet. Just let me go first." She looked down at the carpet. Her fingers twisted in the hem of her dress. I could tell she didn't expect to be caught. Not like this. Not today. Not ever. "I followed you once," I said. "Then again. Then I stopped pretending you were mine. I found the second phone. I saw the texts. I saw the video. And now I'm here, at a hotel you've used before, watching you walk into another man's room. Another one." She looked up, her eyes shining. "Nolan, please." "No. You don't get to say please. Not now. You had 1,000 opportunities to be honest. Instead, you smiled at me over pancakes and told me I made your world safe. You used my love like a passcode." Her breath hitched. It wasn't all fake. I laughed, bitter and hollow. That's what people say when the lie's too big to swallow whole. Then I stepped back. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just said, "I booked this room to find closure, Isla. You gave me more than that." And I walked away. Not out of rage. Not out of strength. But because if I didn't, I would have collapsed right there in front of her. Back in my room, I locked the door, curled up on the bed, and let myself break quietly, in the way only men like me know how to. The silence in room 417 wasn't peaceful. It was dense. Heavy. The kind of silence that rings louder than sound. I didn't turn on the TV. Didn't open my laptop. I just sat there on the edge of the bed for hours, replaying the moment she opened that door. Her face, stunned. His hand on her waist. My name in her mouth like it didn't belong there anymore. I didn't know what to do next. I had no plan for after. All I'd wanted was to catch her, to see it with my own eyes. But now that I had, I didn't feel victorious. I felt hollow. Like I'd built a cage out of questions, only to find out the door had always been open and she walked out years ago. Around 6 p.m., I heard her leave the room across the hall. I didn't get up. I didn't peek. I just listened. Her footsteps were slow, uneven. She paused outside my door. I could hear her breathing. Soft. Then a whisper. "Nolan." I didn't answer. A minute later, she walked away. I heard the elevator ding, and just like that, she was gone. The front desk called an hour later. Said someone had left something for me. I went down, heart pounding like maybe it would be a note. Maybe she wanted to explain. Maybe she. It wasn't from her. It was a keycard. Handed over in a small envelope with no name. Just a room number. 512. I stood in the hallway for a long time before using the elevator. I told myself I shouldn't go. That this was a bad idea. That I'd done enough damage for one lifetime. But my curiosity, or maybe it was my cowardice, pushed me to press the button anyway. Room 512 was at the end of the hall. I knocked once. It opened almost immediately. And there she was. Brooke. Standing barefoot in jeans and a hoodie, hair up in a knot, looking like she hadn't slept since the day I messaged her. I froze. How did you? I checked the registry, she said, voice low. You used your real name. I figured you'd be close. Then I saw her in the hallway, coming out of the elevator with him. I recognized her from the Instagram photo. She stepped aside and let me in. The room was identical to mine, same beige walls, same buzzing lamp, same heavy silence, but it felt different. Lived in. There was a half-eaten sandwich on the desk, a laptop open on a muted news stream, a bottle of red wine, unopened. I came here to see for myself, Brooke said as she sat down on the armrest of the chair. I told him I was out of town visiting my sister, which is technically true. I just left early. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, unsure of what I was even doing in that room. A few days ago, she was a stranger. Now she was the only person on earth who understood the specific brand of madness I was drowning in. I watched them walk in, she said quietly. She kissed him on the shoulder while they waited for the elevator. You didn't see that part. No, I said. I didn't. We sat in silence for a while. The kind of silence that comes after shared loss. Not romantic. Not flirtatious. Just two people bruised in the same places, breathing through the same wound. She turned to me. Do you still love her? The question should have been easy. Obvious. A hard no. A bitter scoff. But instead, I looked down at the floor and whispered, I don't know what I feel anymore. I think I loved your ghost for years. Brooke nodded, like she understood more than I wanted her to. She poured 2 glasses of wine and handed me one. To the ones who stayed faithful, she said. Even when we shouldn't have. I clinked her glass. The wine was cheap and dry. It burned a little. I welcomed the sting. Later, as the night wore on and our voices softened, Brooke told me about the first time she knew Derek was cheating. He called her Mel in bed. She laughed like it was a joke. He froze, then said it was just a slip, a nickname from college. She spent 3 months pretending it never happened. We swapped stories like war veterans. Isla forgetting anniversaries. Derek claiming he had client dinners that left no paper trail. The lies layered over each other so smoothly they became wallpaper. Brooke's eyes were glassy by midnight. She curled her legs under her and said, You know the worst part? I kept telling myself if I just held on longer, he'd come back to me. Like I was the detour and she was the wrong turn. I nodded. I felt like a placeholder. She glanced at me. Maybe we both were. It wasn't a movie moment. No dramatic music. No spontaneous kiss. Just 2 people, ruined in parallel, sitting in the same wreckage. When I left her room, the hallway was quiet. Isla was still gone. Room 419 was dark. I stood outside her door for a long time, debating whether to knock again. I didn't. I went back to my room, packed my bag, and drove home in the dark. When I pulled into the driveway, the porch light was on. So was the kitchen window. She was home, waiting. But this time, I wouldn't be the one explaining anything. When I walked through the front door, she was already standing in the kitchen like she'd been rehearsing the moment. The lights were too bright. The air too still. She was in sweatpants and a hoodie now, the green dress from earlier replaced, erased, like wiping down a chalkboard and pretending the lesson was never written. Nolan, she said, her voice soft, cautious. I didn't answer her. I closed the door behind me slowly and dropped my bag in the hallway. Clyde came running, tail wagging in that dumb loyal way dogs do even when your entire world has turned inside out. I knelt and hugged him for longer than I should have. Isla just stood there. When I finally looked at her, really looked at her, I could see the mask forming. The one she wore when she was about to lie, but hadn't picked which version of the truth she wanted to sell yet. Where were you? I asked. I wanted to hear the lie out loud. She blinked. I told you. I went to. No. I cut in, voice calm but razor sharp. I was there. At the Solace Inn. I watched you walk into his room. Her mouth opened, then closed. Her hand reached for the edge of the counter, fingers curling against the wood. You followed me? I'm sorry, I said. Was I supposed to sit here with your lie-stained sticky notes and second phone and just bake banana bread while you added another name to your hotel key collection? She flinched like I'd slapped her. It's not like that. Then what's it like, Isla? Enlighten me. Because from where I was standing, you didn't look confused. You looked comfortable. You looked home. I was scared, she said. I didn't know how to tell you. You had 7 months, I snapped. 7 months of hiding phones and telling me I made your world safe. Do you even remember who I am to you anymore? She wiped at her face, but I didn't see tears. Just motion. Just damage control. You stopped seeing me years ago, she said, her voice breaking just enough to sound human. You stopped being curious. You stopped trying. I stood there, stunned. That's what it came down to? Me not asking enough questions? Me not prodding at her feelings? So you cheated because I was boring? No, she whispered. I cheated because I felt invisible. Because I thought I was just surviving here. With someone who saw me like wallpaper. I laughed, bitter and exhausted. You're not wallpaper, Isla. You're smoke. You fill every corner and choke everything until there's nothing left. She didn't speak. I pulled the small folded letter out of my jacket, the one Brooke had shown me but never sent, and laid it on the counter between us. She looked at it, hesitated, then picked it up. Read the single sentence. I know who you are when you're not pretending. Her hands trembled. You think I was the only one who knew? I asked. The only one you fooled? Derek's wife watched you. She watched her husband vanish while you whispered secrets into his ear. And she said nothing. Just like me. She looked up, the mask cracking now. You talked to her? We met. At the same hotel. The same day you met your new guy, the one with the gray hair and soft jazz playlist. I didn't sleep with him, she said suddenly, desperately. That's supposed to impress me? She stepped forward, but I moved back. You don't get to reach for me now, I said. Not after everything. Not after the lies, the gaslighting, the mental gymnastics you've done for nearly a year. I walked past her, into the living room. The house felt colder, smaller. She followed. So what now? You want a divorce? You want to punish me? I turned to her slowly. I don't want revenge, Isla. I want honesty. I want my life back. And I want to stop waking up next to a stranger. Silence. Then she whispered, I don't know how to fix this. You can't, I said. That's the point. She sat down on the couch like her legs had given out. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she murmured. That's the thing about betrayal, I said, my voice hollow. It never starts as a plan. It starts as a look, a touch, a feeling. And then one day you're lying to the person who would have walked through fire for you, and you're not even sorry. You're just scared you got caught. She was quiet. Finally quiet. I walked into the kitchen, took the torn sticky notes out of the drawer, and laid them on the table, the initials, the dates, the times. She stared at them like they were relics from another life. I want you out by Monday, I said quietly. I won't fight you. I won't post anything. I just want to be able to walk into this house and not feel like I'm breathing someone else's sin. You're really ending it? I nodded. No. You ended it. I'm just acknowledging the wreckage. I left her there, curled on the couch, surrounded by the evidence of everything we used to be. In the bedroom, I closed the door and locked it. For the first time in months, I slept not because I was healed, but because the pretending was finally over. Monday came quietly. No storm. No screaming match. No emotional breakdowns or dramatic last-minute pleas. Isla packed her things into 3 duffel bags and 1 suitcase. She didn't touch the kitchen. Didn't take any of the photos off the wall. She left behind the mug that said "Best Wife Ever" and the lavender plant I bought her when she got promoted. She left her wedding ring too, placed gently on top of Clyde's old treat jar. I watched from the upstairs window as her car backed out of the driveway. She didn't look up. I waited 10 full minutes before going downstairs. Not because I was second-guessing anything, but because I needed the quiet. I needed to stand in the middle of the house and finally hear what it sounded like without lies in the walls. And it was peaceful. It was the first time in nearly a year that I could breathe without questioning what was real. The coffee mug in my hand felt like mine again. The couch didn't feel like a stage prop anymore. I didn't have to wonder who had been sitting on it while I was out buying groceries and pretending we were normal. In the days that followed, I didn't spiral. I didn't fall apart. I started waking up earlier. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I cleaned the house top to bottom. Got rid of the pillowcases she liked, the throw blanket she picked out, and the wine glasses we never really used but always kept on display. I donated the old hotel key cards. Every single one. I watched the shoebox hit the bottom of the thrift store bin and didn't flinch. Clyde adjusted quickly. Maybe he understood what peace felt like, too. He stopped pacing at night. He started sleeping beside the bed again, instead of guarding the hallway. One night, I sat down and reopened the notepad I'd used to document all the lies, the calendar of disappearances, the initials, the matchbox clues. And I deleted every single entry. Not because I wanted to forget, but because I wanted to stop carrying them. 2 weeks after she left, I got a message from Brooke. He finally confessed. I told him to leave. Funny how it hurts and helps at the same time. I replied, same, but I'm finally sleeping. And that's something. She sent back a smiley face. Then, one day at a time. And that's how it's been. One day at a time. I didn't rush into dating. I didn't rush into therapy or revenge or toxic productivity. I just let myself be. I found an old acoustic guitar in the garage and started playing again. Badly, at first. Then less badly. Then something close to music. I repainted the guest room. I changed the sheets. I threw out the robe that still smelled like her perfume. I sat outside more. Drank coffee on the porch. Watched the mail truck come and go. I started smiling at neighbors again, not because I had to fake normal, but because it felt okay to. And slowly, something shifted in me. I realized I had stopped waiting for the next betrayal. That itch in the back of my mind, the one that made me question every minute she was late, every ping of her phone, every excuse, it was gone. Because she was gone. And with her went the weight I didn't realize I was carrying. Don't get me wrong. I don't think betrayal turns into beauty overnight. But sometimes, when everything falls apart, it clears the space for you to finally see what was suffocating you. Isla was a chapter. A long, confusing, painful chapter. But she's not the story. I am. And maybe for the first time, I'm ready to start writing again, not as the man who got cheated on, not as the man who waited too long, but as the man who finally remembered he deserves peace and love in his own life back.